So now you're in journalism. You're on the trail of Ukraine. So tell us, how did you get onto that path and how they connect?
Well, on 2021, an American Ukrainian filmmaker, Igor Lopatonok, offered me to work on his film documentary entitled The Everlasting Present about the 30 years of independence of Ukraine since the collapse of the European Union. It was, of course, giving my background, European Union and policies and politics, international law in general. I was really happy to embrace this challenge. I didn't know anything about Ukraine at the time. I learned in the process of working this documentary. And probably it was also the idea of the director to put somebody that was inexperienced in the moment and learn through the interviews to political leaders of
Mhm.
Ukraine. That was my first approach, and this was before the start of the war. So I just had the chance to get familiar with this country, the geopolitical situation of this country, the interference of Western players from United States to European Union leaders. Later on, I kept cultivating, of course, this during this new passion, which was investigation. And right now, I'm working on a new documentary, and the interview to Derkatz, the speaker you mentioned before, is part of this. Is going to be part of this documentary, and it's actually even more interesting because it gets back to the story I've been myself part of. I always say, people, you remember the Russia hysteria. Actually, it comes out when we look at the facts and we're investigating the real motives of electoral interference. Every road leads to Ukraine. And we are talking about a specific timeline that dates of 2014, 2017, when Joe Biden was vice president of the United States in the Obama administration, and he was already active and benefiting of his relationship with Ukraine, or better, using his political leverage to enrich his family on the side and to cover up for corruption on the other side. Why I mentioned this time? It's because when the speaker of my interview, Derkatz, leaked their catch tapes, which are the audio recordings of Joe Biden and Poroshenko when Joe Biden was vice president, in which Joe Biden threatened Poroshenko to withdraw or withheld $2 billion to Ukraine in case that Poroshenko wouldn't fire the general prosecutor, Shokin, that was looking into Burisma. Now, what is Burisma? It's the gas and oil company where Hunter Biden, his son, was sitting in the board of administrators for $80,000 a month.
Mhm.
Burisma was involved in money laundering, scheme and corruption, and the general prosecutor of Ukraine at the time was looking into that. Of course, this was a really hot scandal that Joe Biden avoided bribing at the time the president of Ukraine. So coming from there, that it's a in a very revealing fact that triggered the further investigation that was outed actually by OAN at the time. But yeah.
So do you think that, when did Ukraine, so this is where it kind of gets, because obviously they went after Trump with Ukraine, right? That was the second, was that the first or the second impeachment? I get confused. The first impeachment. The first impeachment had to do with Ukraine. And I'm curious if, the Russiagate stuff, if you think that it all had to do with Ukraine, was it separate from Ukraine? But when they went after Trump about Zelensky and Ukraine, it was because clearly Ukraine's very corrupt, and maybe the American politicians thought, well, we can get them to say certain things or get them to do certain things in order to impeach Donald Trump. Like, where do you think it all connects?
Well, definitely, when we talk about one thing I said before is like if any country interfered in American electoral processes, Ukraine, it's because when we track the money and when we track the interest and when we track the leverage, we can only see connection that were established by Joe Biden already in 2014 with Ukraine,
Yeah.
where we follow a money line and we follow blackmail line. We have leverage of amount of information that Ukraine held on Joe Biden far before he became president. So of course they have interest in eventually into having Joe Biden in power to keep on going this corruption
Right.
happening ever since, and that we can track back in the way that Joe Biden America has funded this war only recently. Why so much money that has been funded to Ukraine while we have so many issues here in America? You know, we're talking about inflation, immigration, things from many standpoint of view. We have so much massive investment in a country that is not even part of NATO.
Right.
It's not part of the European Union. It's not an ally of the United States, but becomes so important behind one and always the same philanthropic pretext that we want to save independence of Ukraine from the monster Russia, the same monster that we were so busy and committed to build up through fake narratives from years before. So, of course, it came easy. Putin is the monster, Putin is attacking Ukraine, the United States is at the surface of Ukraine. But then when we look at the money, when we look at the interest, when we look at the leverage used by American politicians, I'm talking about Joe Biden, already from 2014, we understand which country has an interest in interfering in the election to have a certain leader in power.
Yeah.
And this leader is Joe Biden.
When you look at it, like when the motivation, because I think a lot of people have wondered, why did they go after Trump so hard? Like, what was it about Trump? And really, with Trump, it's because he can't be controlled. He's this mercurial president who does and says what he wants. He's not part of the deep state establishment. He'll just do as he feels when he feels. And so that lack of control over somebody, especially with that much power, is extremely threatening. So there's that part of it. But if you look at it from now that you go further down the timeline, and then there's the war in Ukraine, and here we are in 2024, and we see Ukraine being the center of what seems like our universe, right? It's just like everything is all about Ukraine. When you look at Ukraine then we realize that, let me just back up for a second. Then we realize that politics in America revolve heavily around money. I mean, if something has to do with money, they'll make decisions in order to keep the money flowing. If Ukraine is this money laundering sort of like it's this place where Western leaders, Western businesses, Western people can go and it's corrupt, so they can milk it, they can make money there in ways that they can't do in Europe and in the United States because we have laws and we have less corruption,
Exactly.
right? So they've got this like
Exactly.
hotbed of corruption, hotbed of money laundering schemes, hotbed of just lots of billions of dollars going through this. I mean, for Hunter to sit on a board of Burisma with no credentials and make the money he was making, I mean, that's the level, right? So they clear, and we now know that dates all the way back, as you were saying, to like 2014, if not earlier, or around that time,
Yes.
way before before Donald Trump. So they've got this kind of place set up, this playground set up, and they want to keep that going, and they'll do anything at all costs to protect that. And then maybe Donald Trump comes along and says, "Wait a minute, I want to have a good relationship with Russia." And that's like, what? Because if Russia goes back in and has more influence over Ukraine, then the Western world loses their corrupt playground, money laundering playground, right? That goes back to the Russians to use as their money laundering playground. And they want to use it for themselves. The West wants it for themselves, not for the Russians.
Of
So
course.
when you look at it from that lens, it starts to make a lot of sense that like you said, all the roads now really lead to Kiev. I mean, that's like really where the
Yes.
center, that's the area they're able to corrupt. That's the area they're able to make a lot of money from. There's resources there. So they picked it. And the corruption runs deep there. And there's a lot of embedded Western politicians in that corruption. And now that's starting to be uncovered with Hunter Biden and Joe Biden, even when he was vice president. And so then it starts to all make, the angst towards Russia, or the beyond angst. I mean, it's, the just the hatred towards Russia, or the real desire to push them back, makes sense when you realize that the West wants to maintain control over their like, their playground, their casino. I mean, it just seems like
Yes.
so it's just a bunch of corruption there. And so now what you're trying to uncover in this documentary that you've got coming out, when is the documentary coming out?
Well, I don't have a date yet. We are still in the process of working on it. I don't know if I can reveal yet the title, but it's not simply about Biden, actually. It's about how the democratic apparatus and our institution has been weaponized to political ends. And we have this interviewing all the people that have been outing facts of corruption and became targets themselves of political persecution on his side, others whose life has been threatened on the other side. So we are walking through the decadence of this institutions situational with the institutional situation we have right now, and it is going to happen through interviewing very, very interesting characters. So one, and the first one I had the chance to interview, I flew to Minsk to interview him, is Andriy Derkatz. Now, I don't know if we remember when on 2020 Donald Trump questioned the Ukraine government about wrongdoing of Joe Biden in Ukraine, and as a result of questioning, they tried to impeach him. And at the same time, when Rudy Giuliani got to meet Andrew Derkatz, the same person I interviewed, who provided them evidence of corruption of the Biden in Ukraine. Giuliani started to investigate as an attorney those massive amounts of evidence of corruption, and as a result has been targeted himself and has been disbarred as a lawyer and has been accused of being an Ukrainian agent. So the entire point comes to one message. We live in an era in America, a very sad chapter of American history, in which whoever exposed corruption becomes targets of a weaponized DOJ, which is not there to make justice, defend justice, and being a guarantor for the citizen, but it's actually setting people up for crime or silencing people with phony prosecutions. We see it with Donald Trump, and as you said, independently by your political views, if you vote for him, if you like his political agenda or not, everybody can see that this man is charged guilty of everything he's accused without even entering into the evaluation of the evidence.
Right.
While on the other side, massive amount of evidence against Joe Biden or Hunter Biden, including his laptop, are completely dismissed as Russian propaganda. So we charge as guilty people based on any sort of accusation without entering into the legal process of examining evidence. On the other side, we have impunity, absolutely impunity, and actually neglecting even looking into those facts. And people who try to expose facts of corruption are scared to become a target of the DOJ. Foreign citizen as well. We're talking about Andriy Derkatz, an Ukrainian parliamentarian who served Ukraine for 7 mandates, and he was carrying an investigation about corruption in Ukraine. It was not focusing on Joe Biden at all. Actually, as a result of this investigation, facts of corruption of the Biden family emerged. And as soon as these facts have been shared with the American government, he became a target himself, has been sanctioned by the United States, and his life has been basically destroyed, has been portrayed as a Kremlin agent. His entire background has been deleted from Wikipedia, probably, I don't know, but definitely not aired by the Western media. And he's only one of the voices that suffered for presenting facts that were inconvenient to the Bidens.
Right. Andrei Derkatz was investigating Poroshenko and his corruption and ended
Yes.
up then uncovering these recordings with Poroshenko and Biden, and the Biden family started to kind of emerge in his investigation. And then at one point, Antony Blinken actually traveled to Kiev and sat down with Zelensky, right, and said to him, hey, we need to resolve this issue with Derkatz. Like, we need to take care of this Derkatz issue because he's got too much. He's conducting this investigation into my boss. We're not that thrilled about that. And didn't Ukraine actually strip Derkatz of his citizenship?
Yes, and because and this is actually one of aspect very that draw my attention during the interviews, that Derkatz stated that, and before Joe Biden got in power, the Zelensky office was cooperating into making public these audio recordings between Poroshenko and Biden. So it was cooperating into outing corruption until the moment switched against the speaker, I mean the same Derkatz, exposing corruption, and he became a target of his own country. He can live he live in a sort of exile. He doesn't live in Ukraine anymore. I met him in Minsk for this reason. He was a victim of assassination attempt in Ukraine. He believes that this assassination attempt was the result of a Blinken visit to Zelensky office. He believes that this sentence that you quoted, like we need to resolve the catch issue, was referring to unlawful method of physical elimination. So we come from here a corrupted DOJ that sanctioned a key witness to a mafia government who instruct physical elimination of inconvenient witnesses. But he didn't. What is interesting that he kept working on his work to expose corruption. And at the time of my interview in December in Minsk, he handed me a massive amount of documents that we are still in the process. Some of them to translate, research, and scrutinize. We could verify the authenticity of most of them, and all of them prove uncontrovertibly the corruption of Burisma, the involvement of Hunter Biden, and other disturbing audio recordings that I leaked in my X account, in which actually it's a conversation between Shokin, the prosecutor general, looking into Burisma that was fired by Poroshenko under Joe Biden instruction, that now is talking to two Congress American lawyers, Greenberg and Aborisk, and is actually asking for help because he said that as a result of outing corruption in Ukraine is now hostage of the country, he can't fly the country, and he believes that his life is at risk. So they held a piece of evidence, and as a result have been targeted. These are foreign citizens, but we have other people here in America who have been targeted as well. One eminent name is Rudy Giuliani.
Yeah, it is this the story just keeps going, doesn't it? I mean, the plot thickens, and oftentimes what we've learned throughout history is that if somebody's accusing you without any real reason to accuse, it's oftentimes you can look back at them and, shine the mirror at them and say, "Wait a minute, what are you're accusing me, but you're the one who's really doing it." The projecting, and that's certainly what we've seen with Democrats going after the Trump administration, claiming that they were the ones colluding, that they were the ones in bed, and we haven't found really any evidence of that. But then we turn around and we see a lot of it when it comes to the Bidens and Ukraine. So maybe not the Trumps with Russia, but the Bidens with Ukraine. And that is a serious concern for a lot of people. And I'm sure there's even more. I'm sure there's even more people involved.
It is a lot.
Tons of people.
Yes.
It's a hotbed for, like I mentioned, Ukraine has become clearly their playground and their place to make a bunch of money and get rich without and skirting Western laws. And it's very. So what I want to do, I'm going to put the link. You had a great interview with Derkatz, that I'm going to put that link down below so that people can watch that. So that is a fascinating interview. People definitely
Yeah.
should watch that. And then we'll look forward to what else you uncover. I mean, you're doing excellent work as an
Thank
investigative
you.
journalist, doing all of this work now. Um, and we definitely look forward to the rest of the stuff that you have to put out. Where can people find more from you, and as you release more interviews and when you release this documentary, where can people follow you to find out about all of that?
Thank you. This you can, for the moment I posted this interview on my X account, but also on the editorial board of the Intelligencer, where we are publishing these articles and all the work along with other incredible journalists that are working on other very interesting topics, and most of them covered Ukraine as well. So I just would like to get one conclusion about all this
Yeah.
work. It doesn't come to any partisan evaluation. Actually, independently where your political beliefs stand, these facts should concern us all. It's not about Joe Biden. It's not about Hunter Biden. It's not even about Donald Trump. It's about American citizens as a whole, knowing that there is an apparatus of bureaucrats, that's basically the deep state as an apparatus of bureaucrats, that run the country, and they are at the service of a political wave one time or another. So we actually should bring back the power of American people and having your institution working for you. Institution prosecuting crimes and criminals, and not the people who expose crimes and criminals. That's the really what everything comes to. Again, I'm not here in a political fan club or in another. It all comes into retrieve the purpose of our institution. That should work for us. We pay them with our taxes. They're government officials, so we should probably ask for accountability in their work.
Yeah. Well, and it would be nice to have a government that isn't corrupt, that isn't bought off, that isn't looking, we've got all these politicians that have had, like the Bidens, who's had an entire life of service, not in business, but in politics, and yet is wealthy. A lot,
Very
right? A
well.
lot of people would like to know how that happens. How does that work out? And we unfortunately do have, it's not the most corrupt in the world. There are definitely more corrupt governments in the world, but we would like the least amount of corruption in our government as possible. And it's the only way we get there is by exposing corruption when we see it. And yeah, you're absolutely right. We've got to expose the criminals, not the people who are not going after the people who are going after them.
Yes,
So,
that's, you know,
well, thank you so much. Best of luck to you. You have a
thank
fascinating
you.
backstory yourself, and you are doing even more fascinating work. So, thank you so much for everything, and thank you for being here.